Oh. All right. Let's talk about not fitting in. Let's get into that today. I'll start off with some personal anecdotes about myself and how I feel like I never really fit in all the situations and environments that I've been in for the majority of my life, whether it be school or family, even with some of my friends. Never really fully fit in, and for the majority of my life, that was always something that kind of irked me. I mean, it still does to this day, but back then it definitely rubbed me the wrong way of why I just didn't fit in, why I wasn't getting embraced the same way I would see other people get embraced, especially, not only in my personal life, but on television, movies, games. You would just see people kind of be embraced a little bit more. The ostracization wasn't nearly as intense in those situations, but with me, it definitely it definitely seemed to be something that was like very personal, and I didn't feel wanted a whole lot in my life growing up. And it's something I'm just coming to terms with every single day, more and more. Um, to where like the first stage of that for me was, getting very angry about it. I thought that I was being a pretty decent person. I always knew that I had like an arrogant side that I was trying to keep and not so much suppress, but just not allow it to overwhelm my other personality traits. I always knew that I always kind of was more aggressive than other people, but I thought I had, I try to be as kind as humanly possible, listen to people, not trying to, outshine or outdo anyone, trying to make people feel comfortable, around me. I would try different tactics to just have people, embrace me a little bit more. A lot of it was manipulation, but I wasn't doing it. I thought, at least in my mind, wasn't doing it maliciously. I wasn't trying to be, evil or mean to people. I was just trying to connect, you know. But as the days went on, or the years went on, months, different situations, different people getting the same results, I kind of started to ostracize myself and kind of started doing my own thing, isolate myself, and uh, it was kind of a blessing and a curse. The blessing part of it was during that isolation, I very much found out who I was and who I wasn't, who I wanted to be, who I didn't want to be, the people who I wanted to kind of gravitate around me. I definitely got that clarity from that. But also, just the lack of connection that I really wanted, that I saw the people getting, was also something that was hard for me to kind of deal with in a way. And I didn't really know what to do. Especially when you're a child, you don't really get to choose the environment that you're in, so you're kind of stuck. Especially if you don't feel like the people in your life are going to help you change that reality for yourself. So that was like the first stage I was in for like the majority of my life. That kind of stayed with me into my 20s. And then as I got older, got a little more wiser, started talking to more people, and started reading this dude's manga, starting to see that other people kind of went through something similar as I did growing up, not fully being embraced and kind of being pushed out a little bit. I started to really understand, from not so much from like a social level, but also from like a biological level, which I'm going to be talking a whole lot about on my channel, about not only seeing things from a social lens, but from a biological lens as well, since we are animals, that this wasn't so much a I don't want you here because I don't like you, because most of the people who were pushing me out didn't know me. They didn't want to get to know me. They were just kind of acting in or acting in a very much a self-preservation way. I started looking at it as this was a sign that people were pretty much telling me, you don't need to be here. There's nothing here for you. You're destined for better things than this. You're destined for greater things than what's happening right here. There's no reason for us to embrace you because we are not on the same path. You know, you're not ready for what you need to do, and we're not ready for what you are right now. So you can go ahead and go over there. You don't have to go in any specific way, but you can't stay here. We don't want you here. And once I started to see things from that perspective, from that lens, the ostracization I was experiencing all throughout my life and still now, even in my 30s, it makes a lot more sense now. Where I am finding more communities and just more people in general on a one-on-one basis that aren't so eager just to push me out like immediately, because I'm either just not a threat to them, or they just see the good or the positives that I can bring into their life, and they want to embrace that. They want that part of who they're trying to be, and it makes a whole lot of sense, especially when you read about things like the hero's journey, where you have to leave like your hometown and kind of like find yourself to go through your battles and live life, experience life. And sometimes you come back, sometimes you don't, but you just become a more wiser, more whole person when you do that. And that just seems to be the natural course of things. And you can see this within other animals as well. You can't stay where you're at forever. You got to kind of go back, go out, kind of prove yourself for yourself, and then you come back and come back to the community, the tribe, the group, whatever label you want to put on it. And that's pretty much been like the lens I've been looking at this from, more of an optimistic, glass half full type of approach, And what really kind of catalyzed this whole different mindset for me was reading Naruto. That was something that was like very cathartic, because I did not know other people went through such intense people weren't intensely just pushing them away from pushing someone away from them in that way. I've never seen that before. I thought it was just something that only I went through. I didn't see anybody else go through it as intensely. I seen it to an extent, and I knew that's why I gravitated towards the friends that I had, because they were probably going through it as well. But then even then, I would get pushed out from them as well. They wouldn't invite me to things, have me go out and do things with them. And while I was in the perspective and the state of taking a lot of that personally, which it was somewhat personal, but not from the way that I am now looking at it now. The way I see it, was necessary for me to go through that adversity and that pain, honestly, of not being embraced by people who I felt like, at least at the time, should like embrace me, should kind of want me in their lives. But all that's out of my control. All of that was out of everyone else's control, because, like I was saying earlier, we just weren't ready for each other, if we might ever be ready for each other. You know, when you're a big presence, when you shine really bright, some people just aren't in the mood to deal with it. Truthfully, you know, and it happens to everybody. You know, we've all kind of pushed people away who are just doing too much, and like I don't need this in my life right now. I'm not ready for this. And instead of taking that overly personal, going full MJ on them, you can just be like, you know what, this is a sign for me just to do my own thing, do a little bit of isolation, which a lot of people talk about, which I'm glad that's becoming more normalized. People probably should isolate themselves a little bit more, even from like their friends and families, loved ones, relationship partners, just for like a little bit, just so you can get that one-on-one time to fully flesh yourself out, hibernate a little bit, go into the hyperbolic time chamber and do some real critical work and come back as a better, stronger, more whole version of yourself. I think that's what all the great people do in their life is allow themselves that time to process things and to get to a better understanding of themselves. So me just having people just not fully embrace me, looking at it now is definitely for my benefit, for sure. And I think it's for all of y'all's benefit as well, because they're just not ready, and you're probably not ready either, and you might not ever be ready. Honestly, that's a perspective you should always take into account. That might be a reality that you faced. You and your best friend, y'all might not ever be cool. Honestly, if you keep gravitating towards greatness and they're not whole themselves, they're not ready for what you are and who you are, y'all might not ever be cool. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, Naruto was like the huge thing for me, where Sasuke was not ready for what Naruto was. He was like, nah, I don't need this in my life. I got other things going on. He took it very personal, and that kind of led to a lot of like stagnation for him, a lot of obsession, because he was trying to connect with one of the few people that he thought fully understood him, or at least understood him in a way that no one else or very few people did. So it was like he was hurt by that. And I understand that. I've never really had that situation happen to me before. Or no, that's not true. I have had that situation happen to me before, and it's still happening to me. And taking a page out of his book, a little bit. I think he kind of went a little overboard with Sasuke, but just accepting people for who they are and just not allowing them to get in your way to keep you from achieving what you want to achieve. That's pretty much my whole mantra now, is to allow people just to go through their path, do their thing, go down the road that they want to travel, and just keep a open mind that maybe one day that they might get to a place where they can be like, you know what, I'm ready for whatever this is, and we can continue. Because you just never know what the other people, that person, that group, those other individuals are going through, and they just might not have time for what you got going on right now, and they aren't trying to purposely keep you from your vision, from achieving your goals. They just don't want any part of it. So they're like, hey, we don't move that way out here. We don't do this. We don't do that here. You ain't got to go home, but you just can't stay here. And seeing it from a lens of growth, of you, it's picking up your stuff and just continue on your journey, that where you were with those people, with those individuals, was just temporary. And you probably might have got your hopes up a little bit, thinking that these are my people, these were my tribe, that was my girl, that was my guy, that was whatever. Like it's nothing's ever set in stone. It's going to be or it's not going to be. You always kind of have to have that perspective and take that route. Nothing's ever going to be set in stone. So understanding that as long as you are going or aligned with your purpose, and that no matter what you do or what anybody else does, as long as you're getting what you need to continue with your growth, everything is going to work out at the end of the day, because that type of, I won't say demonizing, but that type of just pushback you get from people is there for a reason. You're going to experience that no matter where you are, no matter how old you are. You're going to just not be embraced by people. You're not necessarily going to rub people the wrong way. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. But like I said, people just might not be ready. Sometimes you're not ready for someone. Someone can be right in front of you, and they might be like very, very good for you, but they might not be good for you right now. You might be like, hey, I can't right now. And this happens so much in people's lives. But once you realize when that's happening, and you can take that time in isolation, maybe not like a full isolation, but isolating yourself from certain situations, you can get a whole lot of growth from that. And that was something that I've definitely realized that I was doing for the majority of my life unconsciously. Just unconsciously isolating myself from people who weren't ready for me at that time, and using that isolation to just come to a better understanding of where I want to be, who I want to be, who are the people I want to do these things with, where I want to do them at, and be very unapologetic about it. What route am I going to take to get there? What's my game plan? Do I have it mapped out? Do I actually have some type of vision of my future? During that time, it was very cathartic to fully understand that what I was going through wasn't like this personal, everyone's against you type of deal. It was mostly just people that just weren't ready. Sometimes people just aren't going to be ready for you, and you can't take the route of taking it personal. If that's what you want to do, that's the role you want to take. That is your right. But for me, I definitely don't want to make more of something that I think it isn't. Most people don't really care that much about you to really be like, not only am I going to ostracize this person, I'm going to do it on a very, very malicious level that I'm not going to do to anyone else. That's very rare for people to do that. So when people are pushing you out, they're probably pushing a whole lot of people out in their lives, and they're going to have to live with those decisions. We all do that. We all gravitate towards people, attract certain people, we push certain people away. And once you do that on more of a conscious level, it's going to be a lot easier to live with those choices versus if you're doing it unconsciously. And you're like, oh, what have I done? I pushed this person away, I pushed her away, I really liked her, I really, that's when that can happen. But once you really start to embrace those decisions that you're making, then it's like, oh, okay, I know why I'm doing these things. I know why she did that. She was not actually a really good influence on me. Those dudes, I probably shouldn't have been kicking it with them, because what they do doesn't really align with my values. What she doesn't really do anything or doesn't align with what I want, from my person moving forward. So that isolation that I got from that ostracization I received from those people was for my benefit, was for all of our benefits. No one really got hurt from it. A little bit of feelings hurt, but you got past it. So just really embracing that journey that you're going through, of that discovering like who people are, who you are, and finding the people who are truly, on the same wavelength as you, going down the same path, see the world very similar to you, and embracing those people is like a beautiful thing, they're like Naruto example. If it wasn't for him being ostracized from the Hidden Leaf and going after Sasuke, he would have never met, um, B. You would never met B. Their paths might not have crossed the same way as it did if he didn't need his guidance, if he didn't want to get all the tail beasts together. That was a blessing that he didn't realize was there. Even with Jiraiya, Gaara, all the friends that he made along the way. If he didn't have that ostracization, if he didn't like already be like, I'm not really messing with the Hidden Leaf like that, I'm gonna go out and just gravitate towards other people. He just met so many cool people from that, and eventually, as he got older, wiser, kind of grew into the man he was going to become. And so did they. He ended up coming back, they embraced him, and then the rest is history. So it's something that pretty much all great people kind of have to go through, is that finding out where you truly fit in, finding your tribe, and getting to a place of acceptance of like that's kind of what you have to do. And the longer you wait to do that, the more you kind of get set in your way of being like, this is what it is, and this is kind of how I'm always going to be. I'm always going to be surrounded by people who I don't really like, I don't really respect. Once you get out of that mode, out of that rut, you'll really start to understand like, oh, I don't have to be here. I don't have to accept this as my reality, but also don't take it personal. Don't go on this revenge, rage filled vendetta against people who wronged you, or people who you felt slighted by. Like I said, it's not personal. It's never going to be that personal. It's never going to be that deep. You're not the only one that they do it to, and you're not a victim in that situation either. Both people are getting what they want at the end of the day when that happens. So there's no true there really isn't a whole lot there to be like, oh, this is this terrible thing that is happening to me, and these people are bad people, and this, that, and the third. There's always so much more nuance to these things than you will ever know. So keep looking for those answers. Try to find that nuance. Give that grace. And things will make a lot more sense to you. You know what I'm saying? Like Naruto found out that Konoha did not dislike him as much as he thought he did, as much as he thought they did. They just weren't ready. He wasn't ready. He was a young kid. He was kind of annoying. They were young too, just getting through what's going on, what they were going through. And once he got older, more mature, they understood the value that he was working towards, that he didn't have when he was a little bit younger. Things worked out, and that's going to be pretty much part of most people's hero's journey, is getting to that point of being like, okay, I'm going to use this isolation period to like surround myself with like very specific people, do very specific things, and then I might make my way back and be like, this is what I have to offer. This is who I am. How do you feel now? The people, through that time are also going to be going through their own little journey, and it can create something very beautiful where all of a sudden you have a different perspective of things. That nuance, you got that clarity you receive throughout that time can just make a untenable situation into something beautiful for everyone involved. So this whole thing about people not fitting in and feeling different, I know it's part of this whole neurodivergent explosion we're going through right now, where a lot of people's brains are just wired differently, where people just know like things are off a little bit. Things, we are not as connected as we used to be. The camaraderie between people, even siblings, the genders, is not there anymore. And a lot of reasons for that are valid. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of valid concerns everyone has, but like I was saying earlier, there's so much nuance being missed that we're kind of, cutting our nose to spite our face right now. A lot of resentment, a lot of anger. And once we get past that, once we fully understand like things aren't as personal as they seem to be, and we're all just trying to figure things out, we're all confused, we're all a little bit scared, and we're all just trying to just do the right thing, at least what we feel is right overall. We can move past all this, and we can all kind of come back together and be like, yeah, I might not fit in as much, but at least I belong. Like Naruto definitely came to the conclusion that he belonged there. He might not fit in as how he thought he was going to fit in, but he came to terms with that, and he got in where he fit in, and he made the most of it. So once you get to that part of the acceptance of understanding people aren't going to fully meet you where you're at when you want them to, it can be like a very painful experience, and it can definitely get you in the mindset of like being very, very hurt by the people who felt slighted you. But once you add that nuance to it and understand that it isn't as personal as you make it out to be, it definitely gives you that clarity and understanding people a little bit more, trying to put yourself in other people's position, in their shoes, and be like, if you were them, would you be any different? Would you have treated yourself any differently? No, the answer to that is no. You wouldn't have, because you have as much information about them as they have of you. And like I was saying earlier, once you look at it from the biological sense as well, that fear is always going to be there, especially when they just don't know. That's one of our Achilles heels as humans, is and animals in general. Is when we don't know things, we get a little bit scared. So once you kind of get past that, once you fully accept those limitations that we have, that we need to work on and accept and grow, this whole not fitting in epidemic we're kind of going through will start to make a lot more sense, and people will be like, you know what, this might not be the situation that I want, but I can at least gain something from it. I can at least get a little bit of clarity. I can get some value from this, even though this might not be my full tribe. This might not be the people who I want to have be close to me on a more intimate level. There's still value here, and I can isolate myself, do my thing, kind of start subtracting people out of my life, not permanently, but just for like a period, and do that discovery of like where do I want to fit in. You're just going to get to a more peaceful mindset, in a peaceful place of understanding and like finding the good in those moments of being pushed away. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't all bad. You're just kind of hyper focusing on that negative part, which our brain tends to do for our survival. You have a day where 60% of it was great and 40% of it wasn't. You're going to like focus on that 40% if you care about your well-being, because that 40%, you don't want to repeat that 40%. Like, the 60% was cool, you don't want to repeat the 40%, so you kind of overshadow the good parts of that day. And once we understand that we can't stay there for like a prolonged period of time, we have to kind of be like, you know what, I'm going to dedicate hour, maybe hour and a half in this mode, feeling this and allowing it to flow through me, and then I'm just going to move on. and look at the rest of what happened today, and gain new perspective of what I can learn about myself. And that's the pretty much the mindset I've been in for the last few years, and it's been just giving me more and more clarity and blessings from that. Learning from those times of isolation that things weren't nearly as bad as I remember them. They were as bad as I remember them, but there was also a lot of nuggets of greatness in there as well, from myself and from the other people involved. And it just gives me that peace that I've been looking for the longest time. And like I said, Naruto was like such a beautiful book, especially for children, that will help you, give you that nuance of seeing things from different perspective. Looking at it from outside looking in, looking at it from a black and white perspective. Naruto and Sasuke should not be friends because of what happened in between them. But when you really look at the nuance of who they are as people, they absolutely should be friends, and that's why they ended up being friends. They always were friends the entire time. They were just kind of getting through they're just going through their journey, and they had to separate and come back together, fight a little bit, have some misunderstandings, but it all was for the betterment of their relationship, and it turned out, for the best. So you're going to have those relationships, hopefully not as intense as those two's was, but you're going to have those with people, with situations, and give yourself that grace to understand, like, yeah, you're going to be a little bit impulsive, stuck in your feelings for a period of time, but once you get past that, once you get through it, you're going to be like, okay, you know what, this was for the best. Yes, those rough times were rough. Don't downplay what happened. Accept it for what it is, but accept all of it. Have a fuller, more whole perspective of what that was, and then that would just give you so much more peace, and really have you gain a lot of empathy for other people once you fully have that knowledge of how things really are. So, moving forward, for me at least, when I know I don't fit in a place, I'm going to look at it as, okay, this is not going to, me staying here for a prolonged period, it's not going to help me with my greatness. I can't stay in this suffering for too long. It is kind of making me stagnant, paralyzing me a little bit. And I do appreciate, being acknowledged of, I am working towards something bigger than myself. Other people see it, and they aren't necessarily in my way. They're just not aiding me. So I need to be like, all right, cool. I get it. I see the writing on the wall. I know my way out. I'm gonna keep on moving. Because I wasn't supposed to be here for a long time. But I do appreciate this overall. Not everything about it, but you gotta take the good with the bad. Yin and yang. It's never always going to be good. When it's good, it's good. When it's not so good, it's not going to be. And you just got to take that with it. But understanding that the more you have those nice, meaningful suffering moments, you're just going to have all those blessings and bliss comes from that. Like I said, Naruto was like the perfect book. That's one of the greatest children's novels of all time. Even though it is 700 chapters, I don't know. Once I start having kids, I'll have them read it. I want them to, but at the same time, that might be a huge ask, honestly, especially since it was easier for me to read it when I was reading it in real time versus them going back and reading it, or watching it. But just having this type of story be told about someone who was being pushed away, and it building resentment in that person, and they use that resentment through connecting with other people to motivate them to do more and more for themselves and for their purpose for everyone else, turn into something very beautiful for both people, but especially for Naruto. I definitely gravitate towards him. I definitely see a lot of myself in him, because I believe like all like fictional characters are based off of like real people or real traits of people. So there are Narutos everywhere who are just kind of being ostracized and being pushed away and being like, hey, we don't really want to deal with you right now, but we see what you're doing, so we're not going to stop you. We're not actually going to get in your way, but we just don't want to deal with this right now. I got my own stuff going on. I'm gonna do me. I'm gonna let you do you. And that's the way I see it, and I think that's like a very healthy way of looking at it. To not allow yourself to kind of get immersed in those dark thoughts of people slighting you and people doing you wrong, even though it is valid. What you do with that isn't valid always. So make sure, well, always make sure telling people what to do. For me, I view this as something that needs to happen, especially for people working on something that's greater for themselves, bigger than themselves. Getting to the point where you're like, you know what, that was supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to be there at that time. And that time of isolation where I kind of had my group go from like 12 people to 3 was for my benefit. And hopefully I can expand and add more people to it. Hopefully we're both going to be in a better place mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, to where we can connect. That is the goal of all this not fitting in this that's going on right now. It's the goal that we are supposed to come back together eventually and talk about what happened and really get to a more intimate style of communication. We're doing it a lot subconsciously, but we're just putting that into our consciousness. We're all getting to a safer place where we just feel like, yeah, this isn't what's going on. It doesn't really feel all that great, but I just want to talk about it and see if anyone sees what I see and goes through what I go through. Each person's experience of it might be more intense than the other, but at the end of the day, it is something that all great people have to go through. And once you just get to that point of having that more nuanced look of it, things start to make more sense from a social and from a biological standpoint. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole random rant is when you do feel that pushback, it might be time for you to just to take a step back and be like, all right, I get it. Let's take a step back and let's take inventory, because that might be what I need right now. So yeah, get out of here.